Emma stood near the back wall of the brightly lit gym, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the plain white gi she had borrowed from the front desk. The evening Jiu-Jitsu class was already in full swing, the room alive with the sounds of bodies colliding softly on the mats, the occasional murmur of instructions from the instructor, and the rhythmic grunts of exertion. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of nervous anticipation and quiet determination swirling within her. The other students wore well-worn uniforms and confident expressions, effortlessly gliding through complex moves. Emma felt like a shadow in the room, out of place, unsophisticated, and painfully aware of how little she knew. Across the mat, Coach Mark's voice cut through the air. He stood tall and imposing, his sharp eyes scanning the room with practiced authority. Known for his no-nonsense attitude, Mark was respected and even feared by students for his tough coaching style. He was rarely one for patience, especially with beginners. As Emma lingered near the sidelines, Mark's gaze landed on her. A slow, skepticism-filled smile spread across his face. He walked over, his footsteps deliberate. "Who asked you to join, anyway?" Mark's voice was loud enough to make heads turn. "This isn't a knitting circle. You sure you're not too old or weak for this? Jiu-Jitsu requires guts, not just good intentions." Laughter rippled from some of the more seasoned students. Emma's cheeks flushed hot, and she swallowed hard, suddenly wishing she could disappear. The room seemed to close in on her, eyes fixed in judgment. Mark's words weren't just a question, they were a challenge. And Emma knew the night was far from over. The laughter that followed Coach Mark's sharp words echoed in Emma's ears, heavy and unforgiving. She felt every eye in the room fastened on her, and despite her best efforts to stand tall, her knees threatened to give way. The others had been training for months, some even years, and here she was, a simple woman, in plain clothes, awkwardly shifting her weight from one foot to the other. She wasn't sure what possessed her to sign up for this class. Perhaps it was the lingering emptiness in her life, a yearning to reclaim something she had lost. But right now, all she felt was exposed and small. Coach Mark shook his head, arms crossed. "Let's see what you've got. Try that drill from earlier, the bridge and roll escape. Let's see if you can even manage the basics." His tone was dismissive, bordering on cruel. This was not encouragement. It was an invitation to fail. Emma nodded carefully, trying to steady her shaking hands as she stepped onto the mat. The other students parted around her, some sneering, some curious to see if she would embarrass herself. Taking a deep breath, Emma crouched down, attempting the bridge and roll move with shaky limbs. She struggled to remember the finer points Mr. Martin, the gym assistant, had explained during her brief introduction earlier that week. Her hips didn't lift as powerfully as they should, her roll was clumsy and off balance. Coach Mark's eyes narrowed, as though he could see every fault magnified 100-fold. "Come on." "That was pathetic," he barked. "You're moving like a wet rag. If you can't handle the basics, why even waste our time here?" A few students snickered from their spots on the sidelines. Several whispered between themselves, throwing quick glances at Emma and shaking their heads. One young man, Lucas, half smirked as he muttered something about parking the old lady in the corner. Emma caught his words and felt a sting of humiliation. Every muscle in her body tensed, her breath coming in shallow bursts. I'm sorry, I'm still learning," she said softly, barely audible over the chorus of taunts. Coach Mark's eyes flashed. "Still learning? You've been here 3 weeks, Emma. That's not still learning. That's not committing. Maybe this sport isn't for everyone. Maybe you just want to come here and feel good about yourself without doing any real work." The harshness of his words cut deeper than she expected. Emma's cheeks burned, not just with embarrassment but with a rising fire of frustration. All her life, she had been underestimated, because of her quiet demeanor, because she wore no makeup, because she preferred books and hard work over flashy appearances or brash posturing. And yet, here she was, trying to prove she belonged, only to have her every effort dismissed like dust in the wind. She glanced around the room. Some students avoided eye contact, uncomfortable with the drama unfolding. A handful of the more experienced women looked sympathetic but silent. One older woman, Janelle, gave Emma a slight nod of encouragement. That small gesture was a lifeline. Emma swallowed, steadying herself. "I want to get better," she said, voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. "I'm willing to work hard." Coach Mark sneered. "Work hard? Then prove it. Come on, I'll corner you in a sparring round. Let's see if you can actually defend yourself." The announcement sent a ripple through the gym. A sparring round meant live practice, intense, fast, and often unforgiving. The room was already warm with sweat and anticipation. Emma's stomach clenched. She realized this was no longer a lesson, this was a public trial. "I don't have to," Emma protested softly, feeling the weight of every stare glued to her. She wanted to walk away, to slip out quietly and forget this had happened. But Mark stood firm, arms folded, and the other students watched with rapt attention. "If you want to stay here, you'll face me," he said. "No one's going to let you skate by." Defeated but unwilling to show fear, Emma nodded. She moved to the center of the mat, the cool surface oddly grounding beneath her bare feet. Coach Mark towered opposite, his frame muscular and sure, eyes sharp and unforgiving. "Ready?" he asked. Emma nodded again, heart pounding fiercely. The moment the sparring round began, Emma felt a jolt of adrenaline flood her veins. Coach Mark immediately lunged, his moves swift and precise, forcing her to backpedal. For the first several seconds, she barely kept up, her balance shaky, her responses slow. Mark's expression was a mixture of amusement and contempt. To him, this was entertainment, a chance to witness yet another failure. "Is that all you've got?" he taunted, twisting his wrist and applying pressure to her arm. Emma winced but remembered the instruction: breathe, stay calm, look for openings. Despite her panic, she focused, feeling the texture of the mat beneath her palms, the rhythm of her breath, the subtle shifts in the coach's weight. Something inside clicked, a sudden flash of muscle memory. She twisted her hips, using the energy of his move against him. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. She executed a bridge, harder, stronger this time, rolling beneath Mark's outstretched arm and reversing their positions. The gym fell silent. Even the other students ceased their murmurs. Emma's breath came hard as she found herself on top, her hands steady now. She moved quickly, locking in a submission hold. Mark's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed. He struggled, then tapped the mat, 10 seconds from start to finish. The silence broke with the sharp intake of breath from the crowd, then erupted into applause. Emma sat back, stunned by her own success, cheeks flushed with a heady mix of triumph and disbelief. The same eyes that barely moments ago mocked her were now wide with astonishment. Mark scrambled back to his feet, jaw clenched and pride bruised. "Well, I didn't see that coming," he muttered under his breath, casting a wary glance her way. Emma wiped the sweat from her brow, heart still racing but a fierce smile growing on her lips. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a struggling novice or a joke, but as a force to be reckoned with. As students began to crowd around her, their tones shifting from derision to respect, Emma caught Janelle's approving nod again. Coach Mark, though stiff and guarded, offered her a brief nod of acknowledgement, a tacit truce forged in the heat of the moment. Despite the newfound respect, the tension lingered like a shadow. Emma knew this was only the beginning. The gym was a tough place, and Coach Mark's temper was far from tamed. But tonight, she had taken her first true step forward, proving to everyone, and most importantly to herself, that sometimes a simple woman could do more than just survive, she could win. Leaving the mats, Emma gathered her gear, her mind racing. She debated whether to call a friend, to share this wild twist of fate, or simply to retreat into solitude and process what had just happened. The questions of the night were many. What would happen tomorrow? Would the grudging respect grow or dissolve into bitterness? Would Coach Mark relent or double down on his harsh judgments? Most importantly, could Emma keep holding on to the strength she had just glimpsed? The gym began to clear, and as the lights dimmed, Emma's resolve hardened. She wanted to return, not because she was sure she would always succeed, but because she was no longer willing to let fear dictate her limits. As she exited, the final murmurs of the night hung in the air, mixed with conversations and disbelief. All eyes had been on her, and for once, that attention felt earned, not pitiful. Were you in Emma's position, faced with mockery and doubt, would you stand your ground? Or would you let the whispers pull you back? The choice, she knew, would be hers to make every time. The next evening, the gym was buzzing again with familiar energy, the shuffling of feet on mats, the low hum of conversation, and the clatter of gear being adjusted. Emma stood near the entrance, quietly observing the room while mentally preparing herself. The sting of the previous day's confrontation still lingered beneath her skin, but it had changed from humiliation into something sharper, determination. She had tasted what it meant to earn respect here, and she wasn't ready to let it slip away so easily. Coach Mark was already in position, arms crossed and eyes scanning as usual. The moment Emma stepped onto the mat, his gaze locked on her with unmistakable challenge. Ready to try again? Or did that one lucky move give you all the confidence you're ever going to have? Emma met his stare, a small smile touching her lips. Let's do this. The class quieted as Coach Mark announced, today, we're going to test your knowledge of escapes from side control. Emma, you're up. Show us what you've learned. The room tensed. This was no longer a casual exercise. Emma felt the weight of every eye upon her, each student silently judging whether this simple woman could truly belong. She had no choice but to rise to the occasion. Mark lowered himself beside her. Keep your guard tight. I won't go easy. Emma nodded, focusing on the subtle shifts in his weight as he pressed down, attempting to pin her. The first few seconds were rough. Her muscles tensed, heart pounding. But then, almost instinctively, she shifted her hips, sliding a knee under his body and controlling his arm with a practiced grip. A flicker of surprise crossed Mark's face as Emma transitioned seamlessly into an escape, wriggling free and rolling them into a neutral position. The room exhaled collectively, silence broken only by the sound of their movements. What was that? Mark hissed, momentarily off balance. Emma continued to flow through the techniques, her movements smooth and assured. Each transition was executed with precision, a controlled dance that belied the simplicity of her appearance. The more she moved, the more energy she found, the more her confidence surged. Whispers rippled around her, is that Emma? She moves like a pro. In less than a minute, Emma executed a flawless sweep, ending the exchange with a dominant mount position. Mark's face flushed, a mix of irritation and grudging respect. He tapped her shoulder lightly. Well done, he admitted begrudgingly. The transformation in the room was noticeable. Where there had been skepticism and dismissal, a new current of admiration pulsed through the students. Several of the advanced practitioners approached Emma during the break, offering nods and words of encouragement. There was Lucas, the same student who had smirked the day before, who now gave her a measured, respectful half-smile. I didn't think you had it in you, he said quietly. Guess I was wrong. Emma smiled, an easy warmth blooming inside her. Thanks. Even Janelle, the older woman who had offered quiet support, came over to clasp her hand. You've got something special, Emma. Don't lose that. Coach Mark's expression softened, though his pride still held firm. As class resumed, he called out techniques and gave feedback, but the tone was different, less harsh, more measured. After the session ended, Emma lingered, wiping sweat from her brow. Coach Mark approached, face unreadable. "You've got skill," he said simply. "And guts. Don't let old doubts hold you back." Emma looked up, meeting his gaze. "Thank you. I've worked hard to get here." Mark nodded, as if acknowledging not just her statement, but the unspoken history tethered to it. "There's more to you than meets the eye." She hesitated but decided to trust him. "I was a competitive martial artist years ago. Took a break for family reasons. It's been a challenge returning. I wanted to come back stronger, for me." The admission seemed to shift something between them, a recognition of shared grit beneath surface differences. Mark smiled faintly, offering a rare compliment. "Then you know the discipline. I look forward to seeing what you can do next." As Emma gathered her things again, she felt a new sense of belonging. The gym wasn't just a place to learn moves, it was a place to reclaim herself. Later that week, the unexpected happened. During a routine practice, the head instructor surprised the class by awarding Emma her black belt. The room exploded with cheers, and Coach Mark stepped forward, placing the belt around her waist. "Well earned," he said, his eyes glinting with pride. Emma looked out over the faces that had once doubted her and now celebrated her. It was more than a belt, it was vindication, a symbol of perseverance and respect. The journey was far from over, but Emma had proven her mettle. And the gym now was her arena, where she was seen not as a simple woman, but as a skilled and respected martial artist. After the ceremony, the room still echoed with applause and cheers as Emma stood quietly off to the side, the black belt tied firmly around her waist. The reality of the moment settled over her like a warm wave, yet beneath it was a quiet reflection she had kept closely guarded until now. A few students came forward, congratulating her with heartfelt smiles and words. Among them, Janelle stayed near, her eyes kind and knowing. "You've surprised us all," she said softly. "I have to ask, what brought you here, really?" Emma gave a small smile, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "I wasn't always just Emma from the neighborhood or the quiet woman at the gym. I used to compete, nationally, even internationally. I trained in martial arts long before this stuff." Her voice grew steadier as she spoke. "Life took different turns. I needed to focus on raising my children and supporting my husband's career. For years, that meant putting my own passions on hold. When the kids left home and my husband's business was stable, I realized I wanted to find myself again." Janelle nodded, sensing the depth behind the words. "It's funny," Emma continued, "because I dress simply. I don't prioritize appearances. That quiet, unpolished look you all saw yesterday, that's me, outside the ring and away from competitions. When I walked in, I was travel-worn, carrying more than just physical fatigue. I was carrying doubts and fears." Her gaze drifted to Coach Mark, who had been standing nearby, silently listening. The stern man's expression seemed to hold something softer now, a blend of respect and a hint of apology. Emma's story had shifted something in the gym's atmosphere, unpeeling layers of assumptions away. Coming back wasn't easy, Emma admitted. "There were nights I questioned if I still belonged here, if I could even be the same athlete again. Jiu-Jitsu is a part of who I am, but more than that, it's how I reclaim strength, determination, and resilience. It's my way of proving to myself that I'm not just defined by the roles I had to play in life." Mark stepped forward then, interrupting the moment with a deliberate calmness unusual for him. "Emma," he began, "when you first arrived, I made snap judgments. I let appearances cloud my thinking. But you've shown us that strength isn't always loud or flashy. It's quiet, persistent, and sometimes, deeply underestimated." The room was still, the students watching as their coach and the new black belt shared this exchange. For the first time in months, Mark's words didn't carry his usual sharpness but genuine humility. Emma smiled gently. "Thank you. It means more than you know." Days passed, and the gym felt transformed. The atmosphere shifted from one of skepticism and social hierarchies to respect and encouragement. Students approached Emma not as the underdog but as a peer, a leader. Her history and humility had inspired many of the newcomers who also doubted their own place in the gym. Emma began mentoring a small group of women who felt out of place, offering guidance, shared stories of struggle and success, and confidence irrevocably earned. Coach Mark's attitude softened as well. He began to see the value in patience and the strength beneath gentle encouragement. He approached training with more openness, occasionally sharing a quiet nod or a smile when Emma executed a particularly difficult technique or helped a struggling partner. Emma's story soon spread through the local martial arts community. She was invited to speak at seminars about perseverance and rediscovery, her journey offering inspiration far beyond the gym's walls. Despite all the praise, Emma remained grounded. Her life was still about balance, between training, personal commitments, and self-care. Her humble attire and quiet demeanor remained unchanged, a reminder that true strength was not in appearance but in action. One afternoon, as she prepared to teach a beginner's class, Emma paused, looking out over the room filled with hopeful faces. The journey had been long and winding, marked by doubt, struggle, and moments of deep vulnerability. Yet here she was, no longer just a simple woman, but a symbol of quiet power and resilience. She realized her story was more than about winning a black belt in 10 seconds. It was about rising after being underestimated, embracing one's true self, and transforming skepticism into respect. The gym had given her a second chance, not just at martial arts, but at seeing her worth anew. And she intended to honor that gift, every day, in every class she taught. As students filtered into the room, Emma took a deep breath and smiled. The future was unwritten, but she was ready to meet it with strength, grace, and the quiet confidence born of a journey few saw but all could feel. Her simple appearance was no longer a mask of self-doubt. It was a reminder that beneath every quiet surface lies the power to astonish and inspire. Weeks later, the atmosphere at the gym had shifted in ways that even Emma hadn't fully expected. Coach Mark, once unyielding and quick to dismiss, had grown noticeably more reflective. The transformation was subtle but unmistakable. His commands, though still firm, carried a tone softened by respect. Where once he had been quick to judge newcomers and particularly harsh on Emma, now he seemed more patient, more willing to foster growth rather than ridicule. One afternoon, after announcing the start of a new training cycle, Coach Mark called Emma aside. The gym was quieter than usual. Some students were stretching, others chatting softly, while a few younger practitioners practiced footwork in the corner. The time felt right. "Emma," Mark began, clearing his throat in an uncharacteristic show of vulnerability, "I owe you an apology." Emma looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. While Coach Mark had grudgingly acknowledged her skill on the mat, an explicit apology was something else entirely. "I judged you by how you appeared when you walked in," he continued. "I thought you were just a simple woman, out of place, maybe here for a hobby or a quick challenge. I was wrong. You showed skill, discipline, and heart that many people here haven't even come close to. I wanted to let you know you have my respect." He paused briefly, then added, "And with that, I'd like to offer you some form of compensation for the way I treated you when you first came." His voice was earnest, lacking the usual bravado. Emma was taken aback but touched. There had been no promises or demands from her. She had come for personal growth, not for recognition or recompense. Yet this gesture spoke volumes. "You don't have to," Emma said quietly. "I came here to learn and reclaim something for myself. I wouldn't have it any other way." Mark shook his head, smiling faintly. "Still, it feels right. How about this? Help me design a beginner's program. Share your insights, especially for those who might feel overlooked or out of place like you did. His smile broadened. And consider this your official role here. What do you say? Emma's smile grew, her heart swelling with warmth. I'd like that very much. The weeks that followed saw Emma actively shaping the culture at the gym. Her beginner sessions flourished, attracting students who had struggled to find their footing elsewhere. With her guidance, they learned not just moves but the confidence to trust themselves, to push through the inevitable doubts. Coach Mark, parallelly, cultivated a more inclusive environment. He even began acknowledging in front of the entire class that strength came in many forms and that every new student had the potential to surprise them. Lucas, the young man who had once smirked at Emma's expense, approached her one evening after class, his expression earnest. I owe you an apology, too, he said. I didn't think you had it in you. Now, I'm a bit ashamed for how I acted. Emma laughed softly. Thank you, Lucas. It means a lot. And everyone deserves to be given a fair chance. Her story of redemption and unexpected triumph began spreading beyond the walls of the gym. Local martial arts circles invited her to speak, and her tale became a quiet inspiration for many who found themselves doubting their own abilities. One night, after her regular classes ended and the gym emptied, Emma stood alone on the mats, feeling the familiar texture beneath her feet, the smell of sweat and rubber wrapping around her. She reflected on the journey, from the woman who had nervously stepped onto the mat, feeling out of place and ridiculed, to now, a black belt holder and respected mentor. There was a steady, satisfying smile on her face as she looked ahead. The black belt tied around her waist was not just a symbol of technical skill, it was a testament to her resilience, to her refusal to be defined by others' assessments or surface judgments. In that quiet moment, Emma thought back to the difficult times, the harsh words from Coach Mark, the snickers from students, and the heavy shame she had felt. Yet, those moments had forged within her a strength far deeper than mere technique. She realized that true vindication went beyond winning matches or earning belts. It was about rising above judgment, rebuilding self-worth, and inspiring others to do the same. As she prepared to leave the gym, her phone buzzed. A message from Janelle appeared, proud of you. Keep shining. Emma smiled, typing back quickly, thank you. Couldn't have done it without you all. Before turning off the lights, Emma paused and glanced around the gym one last time, a place that had tested her, broken her down, and then built her back up stronger than ever. The door clicked softly behind her as she stepped out into the night, confident, poised, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. So, what would you have done if you were Emma, facing judgment, ridicule, and doubt? Would you rise with quiet determination or retreat in shame? And if you were in Coach Mark's shoes, would you recognize talent beyond appearance? Share your thoughts below, and let's continue this conversation. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales. See you in our next story.